Hello, I'm Donald Leggett. Welcome to the latest London South East CEO interview. Today, I'm joined by Simon Tucker, CEO of AIM-listed SRT Marine, for an operational update. SRT is a specialist in maritime surveillance, monitoring and management systems. And it's only a week or so since SRT published a half-year trading update with revenues of 18.8 million and pre-tax profits of 1.5 million. Meanwhile, the business looks forward to interims on the 14th of November. Well, Simon, it's lovely to be hearing about an interesting tech business with a maritime surveillance focus. I don't think I've ever come across anyone like you.
I don't know what to say to that. I think we're a unique business insofar as that we're addressing a market segment that's been overlooked for many years. And we've been lucky enough to spot that opportunity many years ago and have the time and the support of our shareholders to develop both the market and our products and technologies to the point where they are today, where we have product now going into customers in Middle East and in Southeast Asia, and a pipeline of significant more contracts coming. So we've been lucky to build ourselves up underneath the radar and let the market and our product and company mature. And the latest results have seen the result of those investments over many years, and that's just the beginning.
Okay, why don't you talk us through the business? Just give us a holistic overview, if you will, and give us a sense of the divisions and how it all operates.
Okay, so the summary of our business is it's air traffic control, but for boats, but for what we call the maritime domain. And I think everybody knows that most of the world is the marine world. 85% approximately of the world is covered with the oceans. 90% of our economic activity comes across the oceans, not just on the big ships that you see, but also on all the supporting vessels, fishing boats, food, and the protein that comes from some fish. So the control and monitoring of that is very important. But it might be surprising to some of your viewers that there's almost no maritime surveillance, persistent maritime surveillance for countries, unlike the aviation world, where you have air traffic control, which is now a $10 billion a year industry for only 38,000 commercial aircraft. Yet we have 26 million boats worldwide. So what we do is we've developed technologies and products that enables countries, authorities like coast guards and fisheries, to actively manage, control and secure their marine domain. And we deliver those as complete turnkey systems. The value of those projects will vary from perhaps $5 million through to the largest that we have upcoming is about $180 million. And each of those are just the first phases of countries building up their individual systems. And so we're delivering, I suppose if you want to strip out what we're delivering, is very fancy software and system design that we have developed over many years, which then marries with third-party hardware. That might be a Dell server or a radar and cameras, which is installed on the coastline. Bring that all together, and a system operator sitting in a control room, be that in Manila or Manama in Bahrain, perfectly sees what's happening in their maritime domain, and analytics applied to that, and they get an alert from the hundreds of thousands of movements of vessels. This is the bad guy, or this is the person doing something illegal or suspicious, and then therefore they can send their assets there to respond to it. That's what we do, and we're right at the beginning of that market.
Okay, and I haven't asked you this previously, but is it possible to give me an example, a named example of someone that you're working with, and talk us through that case study example?
So on our systems business, we have two main types of customer: the Coast Guard, and we have and fisheries. The reason those are the two, obviously, the fisheries are in most countries, the largest number of boats are fishing boats, and the Coast Guard is also responsible for security. So we have currently an ongoing project in the Middle East. I'm not allowed to name the specific country, and they're looking to secure their maritime border and track and monitor all the boats that are approaching their border. They're in a pretty strategic position in the Middle East, and so it's very important for them to know who's friend and who's foe. If there's a foreign vessel in their waters, has a vessel been hijacked and perhaps attacking one of their critical infrastructure, so they can then take rapid action. And we deliver all the control rooms and data centers and surveillance systems to them.
When you're pursuing one of these contracts, do you run it all from the UK, or do you do you send a team out to the country? How does it work?
Okay, so the starting, it's a long process. It's a long process to work with our customer to develop their idea into a system specification, which turns into a project, which is then delivered. It normally starts with an email inquiry. Somebody politically in the government has made a decision. We need to have maritime surveillance. This is now not unusual. It is a macro trend that is now moving across the world, and somebody is tasked with go and find out who offers these things. We always come up now because we've been around this for so long, and we are the lead, considered to be the leader in this space. What happens then is we will then provide them with some information, and then starts a long consultancy process where our sales and product management team will engage with that customer and say, okay, so what actually, what sort of level of coastline do you have? How many islands? How many boats? What sort of budget do you have? And start to build up a detailed specification for these projects with them, for them to understand how they're going to take typically a paper-based system into a digital system from what we call concept to operation side. And that process will typically take 1 to 2 years to develop a project specification. The sites, you can imagine, does the site have connectivity? Does it have power? Is it in the middle of a jungle? All that sort of stuff. Then you get a contract, and then you're on your way. The good thing is
everything's a little bit bespoke.
It's the same components but different mixture.
Yes.
So it's always, you'll have surveillance towers, you'll have satellite data, you'll have a data center, you'll have consoles. It's a question of how many consoles, operator consoles, how many satellites do you want to have fed into that? How many coastal towers do you want with radars and cameras and things like that? So it's always the same ingredients, just different numbers. And then it's a question of phasing. So we've got a big customer coming up in Southeast Asia where their first phase is a huge number, but it actually only ends up giving them a percentage of coverage. And so there's subsequent phases coming down the line, a little bit like building an airline. You start with an A320, then you buy a couple more, then you buy a 777, then you buy an A380. You build that up over a period of time.
So you may be a small business today, but you've already got an awful lot of growth built in.
Yeah, that's right. We have £70 million worth of active contracts underway today. We have a pipeline of worth about 600 million. And we have further visibility beyond that. What we do is we try to focus our limited resources on those where we know that they have the budget, the political will, and decisions have been made to proceed. So the contract is going to proceed. It's a question of when. And that sits in what we call a validated sales pipeline, which today is worth about 600 million pounds. But our access to these sorts of numbers is a result of 8 years of R&D around the technology and the systems. And so whilst we're a small company today, in a way, technologically, we're already a big company. We have a very sophisticated product that we're selling into these countries. And from their perspective, they have proven references. So, the Philippines fisheries, the world's largest fishery system, Bahrain, and another country in the Middle East, where we have big Coast Guard systems. So what you're seeing in the results that we've just done, where we've just done over 18 million pounds in the first half, is just the beginning of that crystallization of that R&D investment into business.
Okay, and why you? Why do you think you're the leading supplier in the world? What differentiates you from the competition? And are there barriers to entry? What's to stop other folks coming along and doing similar?
We lucked out. So we started life creating black boxes for boats that stop them colliding, a thing called an AIS transceiver. And actually, we still have a business that does that, and that grew 20% in the last 6 months. And rather like with black boxes on airplanes, people realized that you could actually track the boats using those. And that gave us an insight into the maritime domain market many years ago. And we were surprised to see that there wasn't any national scale surveillance. And we took the strategic decision that that's what countries would want. I suppose a little bit like Henry Ford. Had you asked the customer what they wanted at the time, they would have said, I just want a faster horse, not a car. And he took the view they wanted a car and developed the car. Well, we took the view that they needed a maritime domain awareness system. And so why are we in the position? It's because we took that decision 8 years ago, and we've had the support of our shareholders to get to where we are today to develop that system. If you wanted to get into that market today, you would have to have that technology and that system, which would take many, many years to develop. You would also need to have the references of these large contracts that we've already delivered, because the first thing a country does is then say, well, okay, can I talk to somebody who has it about your technology and your system? So there's multiple layers around our business that make it extremely hard to get into that. And even if you were, had the intent to do that, you'd have to build the team to be able to develop the technology. You'd have to build up the knowledge that we've learned over the last years of how to install these things and all the problems that come up against on these big systems. So, our rapid growth that's now starting is a product of many, many years of patient, consistent investment in our product.
Yes, you're an overnight success, but it's taken you 8 years of grind to get there.
Yeah, it's been a long, long time. Yeah.
Okay, and transceivers, what started off life as a black box boat business. Tell me what transceivers does today, and what who your customers are, who you sell to, what the pipeline is in that part of the business.
Okay, so we grew 20% year on year, and basically this is all about the maritime domain going digital and navigation going digital, just the same as on land. On the water, people are now looking at autonomous shipping, and therefore what comes with that is safety of navigation, and they're digitizing that. What these little black boxes do is all enable different entities to talk to each other in real time and avoid each other. So we make little black boxes that go on the sides of canals and waterways, on locks that will tell the commercial boat that the lock is open or closed, or if the gap between the water and the bridge is too narrow for them to fit under it. And you may think that's a small market, but the United States has over 50,000 bridges. Europe has over 15,000 inland waterway commercial vessels. There are 12 million commercial boats, leisure boats in the United States. And so we're right at the beginning of people starting to fit these black boxes. We continue to make what are called AIS transponders, these black boxes, for that market. And we sell worldwide. And we are by far the leader in that market by virtue of having the breadth of product availability of different types for different boats, and our reputation over the years. We're on our third generation of AIS transponders. We supply everybody from RNLI to the US Coast Guard to Trinity House to the European waterways, you name it, we sell it to them.
And do you expect, similar to 20% growth to continue?
Minimum. Well, in fact, in the first half, we weren't able to supply all demand because of production constraints, because of all the electronic component issues that are prevalent around the world today.
So talk us through those electronic component problems.
So typically when you buy, we manufacture, we're similar to Apple in that we design the product and then we contract out the manufacturing. And so a typical black box is about 100 components from 40 different suppliers around the world. Obviously, you need to have all those components sitting at the end of the production line before you can make them. And each of those components has a different lead time. Typically, in aggregate, it's 6 months. That's what it's always been. So all this just-in-time stuff is nonsense unless you're Toyota or Apple or somebody. But for the mere mortals like SRT, it's 6 months. Mm-hmm. Today, it's 12 months. And something you ordered 12 months ago and you expect to come in, I don't know, on Monday to start your production on Tuesday, we might hear today, sorry, it's going to be 3 months late. So then you have to rush out into the grey market.
Where are the main delays coming from? Is it getting stuff from China, or
no? I mean,
is it worldwide?
Worldwide.
So there's a simple solution to this.
If I'm frank with you, I don't understand why there's such a problem in the electronic component market, but there is. I think what happens is a little bit like a rocking boat. It's sort of done this and it's doing this at the moment, and gradually it'll settle back to normal. We see it unwinding over the next year. But I think for the next year, the issue for us is that, let's say we want to make 1,000 of something next week. We've ordered 1,000 components 12 months ago, and suddenly we don't have 100 of the components, so we can only make 900. Mm-hmm. Then we have to go and try and find those other 100 in what's called the grey market. And it's just a problem that has always existed in electronics manufacturing, but now it's very widespread and it's more so. So it's just a struggle. And so for the year end, we could have, the revenues could have been substantially higher. We've got an order book now into the second half, which will fulfill, and gradually it's, you know, it's easing, but these problems will remain for a bit, in our opinion.
Okay.
And it's just life.
Just life. Okay.
Yeah.
My last question for you, Simon, which thankfully doesn't involve just life. News flow. In terms of news flow, what are the kickers for the share price that we can expect over the next few months? I mean, this is the classic question the retail audience always wants to hear.
So we've been relatively quiet as a small company in the last couple of years because we believe that real investors want results. They want to see the company making money, not just piffle news about, you know, we turned up for work today. And that started with the recent trading update to point out that we did 18 million and made a minimum of 1.5 during the first 6 months. And we'll clarify that on the 14th of November with the full interims. Now that we've started on that, I think investors can start to see a much greater news flow, which will be around contracts being signed, which then with news that then translates into real revenues and real profits going forward, and a continuation of that growth. But we've just been quiet until now.
That all makes perfect sense. And the continuing production constraints, will they hinder you to what extent?
I think it'll prevent us from growing, from the transceivers division growing as quickly as it possibly could. Mm-hmm. But we're still expecting, you know, to achieve 20% year-on-year growth. I think that'll unwind, but towards the end of next year, I hope it does. And on our system side, it just means that we perhaps need to order equipment a little bit sooner than we would have previously done so.
And on the system side, the sky's the limit?
Yeah, well, 600 million at the moment. I'm happy with that. You know, there's a lot going on after that. Other projects coming in that we see on the horizon. But we've got a forecast out in the market for 56 million pounds and just over 6 million of profit for this year. We've purposely not put anything out for next year because the scale of these contracts means that, you know, you can imagine the revenue multiplication can be massive, and we want to be sure to provide that guidance when it's under contract. So when those contracts come in, there'll be announcements and updates on the forecast for the year ahead. But yes, this is a very big, you know, you only have to look at the aviation market. It's $10 billion a year now for air traffic control for 38,000 commercial aircraft, as opposed to 26 million boats.
Simon Tucker, thank you very much indeed for joining us. That's absolutely fascinating. A world I knew nothing about, and now we do. So thank you.
Now you have maritime domain awareness.
Oh, absolutely. And I've SRT Maritime awareness. Fantastic. I'm very, very glad you joined us today. That was very, very helpful.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And if you want to get some free SRT data and chat pages, head over to the London South East website. We provide free data for all sorts of companies, including SRT. To see more free investment interviews like this one, just Google London South East YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And meanwhile, I hope you all have a very, very good day indeed.